were nothing more than a group of people engulfed in constant and consistent and ongoing warfare. The Greek society was based on that, and as they participated in one war after another, going to take land from other people, and became an imperialist nation. So then you have Alexander. Some of you may know him as Alexander the Great. I didn't say great, but this gentleman Alexander, this guy goes in and conquers the known world, the world that was known to him, and becomes ruler of it, and impose the Greek conduct. So with the Greek conduct, you have a upside down social system where you have women with women, men with men. Not only that, but you have the systematic rape of women. You have infanticide as well, whereby because the food was hard to come by in the early days, they developed a semi-nomadic culture where a infant was always additional stress to that society. It was additional stress. So this is where we get the concept of the crumb snatcher from, in reference to infants, because in these nomadic and semi-nomadic cultures of Europe and Central Asia, you have people that were nomadic, and it was hard to come by food, and this is before they learned how to farm. So it was difficult to find food. So anytime a baby was born, that baby was looked at as a crumb snatcher, and guess what? Some of those crumb snatchers never made it because they were exposed out in the elements, and so exposure was something that took place on a regular basis. What do I mean by exposure? Well, they were just put out of the society, and they were just left for the wolves. And this is pretty common knowledge. There's no there's no speculation here. It's very common that infanticide was a fundamental part of the Roman and also the early Greek society as well. And the group of people that were put out more than anybody else were women. Women were not seen as valuable as men. They didn't really have much value at all. In fact, the most important person in Greek society was the young male warrior, not women, because women weren't as physically strong as men, and they're not usually physically strong, so therefore they didn't have the same value as men. You think about it. If it's a warrior society, as the Greek society was, who's going to be the most important group? Obviously the young men who were strongest and had the most physical prowess and so forth. And this is why women were seen as a liability. Infants were certainly a liability. And what other group was a liability? Elders, because elders are not as strong as young people. So you can see some of these carryovers that still take place in Western society today. So the question is, what is so special about the Greeks and Romans? Whatever contribution they have made, there's nothing that they've contributed that's superior to anything that Africans have given to the world. So what? We use the Roman Senate as the basis of the U.S. Senate, or the Greeks may have contributed certain academic skills or disciplines which they did not invent themselves, but whatever contributions they made, those contributions are not superior to anything that Africans have developed and have invented. But yet, in classics departments across North America, we have the audacity. We experience the audacity of having a classics department that systematically excludes African people and classical Africa. So when we look at the word classical, then we know that this is a term that must be applied to the African reality as well as other people in the world. There's nothing exclusive about classical being associated simply with Europe. This is simply a calculated misrepresentation of human culture by those that set up classics departments or run them without any thought to expand beyond the Eurocentrism that permeates academe. So classical African civilizations. Let's give one other definition here. The term or definition of civilization. Now, usually, if you read most textbooks or history books or just conversation in general, maybe you may look at documentaries. The assumption is this: that a civilization has basic elements to it. That a civilization in the traditional definition has cities, it has writing, the people were able to write, and a writing system, that it had agriculture, and then also that the civilizations also had metallurgy, that they were able to smelt or shape iron. And these are some of the basic elements that are included in most definitions when we're looking at the term civilization. The problem with the traditional definition of civilization is the fact that it does not deal with people and their relationships. This definition, the traditional definition, simply deals with things. You know, things like writing and or cities or agriculture. These are things. It doesn't deal with the quality of the relationships between people. So this definition is limited. And the problem also with the traditional definition of civilization is that any group of people that maybe they didn't have a writing system or maybe they weren't farmers, they are seen as uncivilized. Even though you have some of the most incredibly advanced social systems in the world, right in Africa and other places in the world, yet these people have been classified as, quote, uncivilized because maybe they were missing a few of these elements. And who put this definition together and added these different elements like cities and writings and agriculture and metallurgy? Well, obviously this is a European definition that has been used against people of color. So that if you don't have these elements, then you're uncivilized, which means we will treat you differently than we will treat people that we have respect for, who are also civilized like us. This is the mindset of those that use the definition of civilization against traditional people. Now, here's a definition of civilization that makes more sense, and I'm sure many of you who are listening right now will agree to this. And you're listening to Africana Studies with Professor Manu M. Pym on the BlakeRadio.com network, and I'm discussing classical African civilizations. Now, I'm a professor at Merritt College here in Oakland, California, where I'm broadcasting from, and I've been a professor of Africana Studies now for about 15 years, and during that time I've done systematic primary or first-hand research in 16 countries around the world related to the African historical experience. So I'm a historian and a primary researcher, and you can reach me at 510-482-5791. That's 510-482-5791. I'm in Oakland, California. Or you can email me at profmanu, that's P-R-O-F, F as in Frank, M-A-N-U, profmanu at acninc.net. That's profmanu at acninc.net. And I will send you the link to my website, which contains some of my essays, as well as my forthcoming book entitled Modern Fraud, The Forged Ancient Egyptian Statues of Ra-Hotep and Nafret. Modern Fraud will be available later in 2003 in the fall. And you can also obtain copies of my video and audio tape presentations, as well as obtain a copy of my current book, which is currently available, Towards Black Community Development. And now, the definition of civilization that I use, and I'm sure many of you will agree that it makes a lot more sense, and that at the root of the word civilization is, civil relations. Yes, on the one hand, civil has to do with civics in the city, but on the other hand, if you're civil, that means that you're peaceful with people, right? So an African definition of civilization, one that I use, that I put together that's more meaningful for us, is that civilization is the peaceful and harmonious relations among people and between people and their environment. Peaceful and harmonious relations among people and between people and their environment. There's harmony there. So that there are ethical laws that govern relations between the people, and there's ecological laws that govern relations between people and their environment. Now, this definition extends our understanding of the type of cultures that are harmonious, and that has to be understood as the fundamental example of what it means to be human. The peaceful and harmonious societies, like the small stature people that sometimes are negatively called